So in this, our second episode in ADHD Awareness Month is a very, very extra special episode. Episode 24 is the one where Dawn finally gets her ADHD assessment on the NHS tomorrow. Dawn, how are you feeling?
I'm suddenly feeling exposed. I don't know. I guess, obviously there's a little bit of excitement because I'm finally getting to that point that I've been waiting for all this time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a point in me that it doesn't quite feel real yet.
Yeah.
And because
it's been hanging over you for so long.
Yeah, and also because my brain doesn't deal with anything until it's staring me right in the face, until it's urgent. I'm still not, I've not done any prep for it. I'm not going to lie. I've done no prep for it. I've looked out my school reports.
Yeah, thank goodness you got those.
Well, actually, that's a lie. I didn't look at my school reports. I tidied up today, found my school reports and thought, I need them for tomorrow.
Great.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
So I've got them, and I'll do some prep probably last minute tomorrow morning. And I know I should be more prepared and I should do it today, but I know my brain's not going to allow me to do that, so.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF. ADHD as females, the podcast.
Hi, I'm Dawn.
Hi, I'm Laura, and we are ADHD AF. Seriously. We are two neurodivergent neighbours who moved to the same street at the same time, at the same age, with the same undiagnosed disability. What are the chances?
Since discovering the enormous impact ADHD has had on our lives and the horrifying numbers of missing undiagnosed females, it has become our mission to make some serious noise.
We want to use our voices to raise awareness, break the stigma, and share our experiences in the hope that they help others.
So join us for a chat, or as it's called up here in Aberdeen, a blether.
Trigger warning, we will be covering some really sensitive topics, so please do have a read of the description of each episode before listening.
It's important to note that we are not medical professionals, we're not therapists or coaches, we're not qualified to offer advice or support. What we will do is share our experiences alongside resources and information from professionals. We will talk over each other and we will go off topic and forget the point mid-sentence.
We are both assigned female at birth, which means that we can only speak from the experience of life as AFAB people. However, ADHD AF is an inclusive space. Whatever your gender, you are very welcome here.
Yes, you are.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF.
Okay, so let's start. For anybody who hasn't followed us on this journey up to this point, tell us when you started this diagnosis process.
So it would have been May 2021 was when I first approached my doctor. A friend said to me, you know what? A friend of mine's just been diagnosed with ADHD. And she was telling me about all her symptoms, and I thought she was talking about you by the way she spoke. Mm-hmm. And she's like, have you ever, thought about looking into that? And it's funny because I actually spoke to a therapist the year prior,
mm-hmm.
and that therapist dismissed me having ADHD because I could hold a conversation with her.
Yes. Masking.
Yeah. Not just masking, but I was in a really, really bad place mentally, which is why I was seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
And I was invested in getting out of that bad place.
Yeah.
So I was hyper-focused in
communicating
and trying to understand what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
So of course I was able to focus within that because it was my hyper-focus.
Yes, yeah.
So when but when she said that, I put it to bed because a healthcare professionals just told me I don't have ADHD, so I didn't really think any more of it. And again, it had been something that had been spoken about over the years and joked about me having ADHD, but because I didn't have a full understanding of what it was, I dismissed it myself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until that point where a friend of mine planted that seed back into my head that made me think maybe I should go and do a little bit more research into this.
Yeah.
So yeah, started reading, started looking at the TikTok videos, started looking and learning about it, and all of these chords were being struck and making me realise, oh shit, this is
Me.
this is me. This is a bit of me here. So I approached my doctor, had the conversation with them, asked for the referral. And as far as I know, I was referred, but I didn't hear anything about it until I chased up the doctor again in August. And it was only at that point when I chased the doctor in August that I eventually got the referral letter through to say that I had been referred. At that point, it said there was a waiting list, and that was it. You're on the list. You will be contacted. So towards the end of the year, I was still struggling. I'd started uni, and I genuinely believed that I would have had a diagnosis by then.
Because you didn't find out.
Yeah, because...
Yeah, you didn't realise that the wait was so long.
I had no clue that was the process and the waits were so long. So yeah, I thought I would have a diagnosis, and I didn't. And so I'd started uni. I'd had a life coach, and she was helping me. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to crack on with uni. And the first semester I was really focused and doing well, and I did do well. I finished like semester 1 with all A's.
Yeah.
But I also approached the university about ADHD and told them that I was going through this process, and I didn't even know that this was possible until they said, oh, well, we can put you to an educational psychologist who can assess you for ADHD. Although the belief that they told me was that, you know, they could tell me if I had ADHD or not, but then through speaking to other people, they're like, well, an educational psychologist can't diagnose you.
Yeah, so it isn't a medical diagnosis. It was in order to have the support from the access team at your university to help you do your degree.
Yeah.
But that then didn't give you access to treatment and support medically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that educational psychologist report came through. Well, I had the assessment. That was a 2-hour assessment. We went over dyslexia and everything else that they do. And at the end of that conversation, he's like, I have no doubt in my mind that you have ADHD.
Yes.
You have scored 9 out of 9 in both categories. And yeah, there is absolutely no doubt. He's like, even sitting speaking to you and looking at you, you've been sitting fidgeting with something the whole time and just all these little things. And so, yeah, so that, like, obviously in itself, like the validation, being like, oh, it's not just me. I'm not just a total fuck up. Yeah, it was a massive relief. But I still had to wait for the clinical diagnosis before anything
And
can
on
get
top
done.
of that, you also had to chase it more.
Yeah. So because I had this from the uni, I'm like, well, I know I've got ADHD now. So
Let's hurry up, shall we?
let's hurry
It's
up.
done.
Let's speak to the NHS. Let's tell them this. Let's send them my report so that they know that I've got this, essentially a diagnosis already. But the psychologist did warn me. He said, a psychiatrist might look at my report and be like, well, I'm not interested in this because it's not a psychiatrist report.
Yeah.
Or you might get someone who is interested in it. So it just depends who you're dealing with. So I sent that to the psychiatrist secretary, and she came back and she's like, thanks for your report, but this won't make a difference. Okay. Unfortunately, we can't hurry up the process. You're still on the waiting list. And there was a lot of kind of back to and froing. I had a new therapist at the time, and she was chasing it up as well. And just after Christmas this year, after New Year, this year, she'd managed to get some information that said I was 4th on the list to be seen. And I was like, well, that's great. And I was like, how long did they say? And they told me approximately 4 to 6 weeks. So I had this, little bit glimmer of hope at the start of the year, thinking, well, I'm being told this at January. Like, that means maybe by my birthday in April, I'll have my diagnosis and, start the processes to help and get the support in place so that I can smash uni and
keep smashing things.
Yeah. And then, like, towards the end of second semester at uni, I could definitely see a drop in my motivation and focus, and I didn't quite hit the same grades at the end of first year than I had at the beginning, and that was getting me down because I knew I was struggling, and I knew it was my ADHD that was making that struggle appear. So it just gave me more kind of fight within to be like, right, we need to get this diagnosis. And then when uni broke up, I was like more determined to get it all in place for me going back in September, which obviously it still isn't.
Yeah.
But through communication back and forth to the psychiatry office, I did get a few more answers, and I essentially pleaded with them.
Yeah.
I told them that, I need this. I'm not in a position financially that I can afford it, but I'm at the point now where I feel like I have no choice but to try and get the money together somehow
to be private, because
to
the
go
point
private.
because the point is that they were not giving you a date.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, if you can tell me if it's 3 weeks, 3 months or 3 years,
Yeah.
then that's going to shape whether or not I beg, borrow and steal a couple of grand to try and get diagnosed, basically.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it. So I said to them, I have ADHD, which means I struggle financially.
Yeah, not that all people do, but that's
No.
how it presents in both of us.
Yeah. And I've always struggled financially. And so I don't have money right now that I can pay for a private diagnosis.
Which at the end of the day, they might not accept
Exactly.
to do shared care, as we heard with Nicole.
Yeah. So I said to them, I was like, you're kind of pushing me into a situation where I'm potentially going to get myself into financial struggles so that I can get a diagnosis. And that financial struggles are going to affect my mental health. And I just really pushed it on them. And then eventually the psychiatrist secretary came back to me and said, we're looking at a date for September for you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear that was just like...
because then you
Yeah.
know what's ahead of you. It's not just complete limbo.
I was sat at my desk in my summer job and I just
Yeah.
started crying as soon as I got that email, because it was like, there's an end in
We're
sight,
actually
you
getting
know?
somewhere.
And then that date in September turned to October, which is now October 4th.
Tomorrow.
And yeah, so here we are.
So here we are. So that's us up to speed
Yeah.
with what's going on. You feel like you're not quite there yet in terms of feeling it coming tomorrow, and potentially maybe the best thing to do is to just do some prep, and it will get you in the headspace to do it. So maybe we should go and do that now.
It's probably a good idea.
Yes, let's do
Because
that.
otherwise I'll probably just do nothing and just turn up on tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. What day is it? I don't even know.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we have said many, many times, we were helped by the ADHD Adults podcast and the charity ADHD Adult UK on our journeys, educating ourselves and finding out what this is all about. Now, on the boys' website, so obviously we were on their podcast last week and they were on ours.
Yeah.
They have got this really handy form which says what is needed for a diagnosis in ADHD in an adult. So to get a diagnosis, the following needs to be met. So positive for 5 to 9 symptoms of inattentiveness and or hyperactivity impulsivity. Several symptoms, inattentive or hyperactive/impulsive, were present before the age of 12. Several symptoms must be present in 2 settings. For example, at home, school or work, with friends or relatives, or in other activities. There is clear evidence that the symptoms interfere with or reduce the quality of social, academic, or occupational functioning. And finally, symptoms do not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or another psychotic disorder and are not better explained by another mental disorder. For example, mood disorder, anxiety disorder, dissociative disorder, personality disorder, substance intoxication or withdrawal. So we are sat here now. Dawn has got her various record of educational training
I do.
from Scottish Qualifications Authority.
The SQA, yeah.
And she has got all of her reports here. So the first thing we are looking for is 5 to 9 symptoms. So what are your 5 to 9 symptoms, Dawn?
From childhood or from adult? Like, I don't even know.
Oh. So how does your ADHD present in 5 to 9 symptoms? So you've got
Task paralysis.
paralysis.
We have got the inability to focus. We have got fidgeting. What else have we got? It's so hard. I'm just going to say that this is just highlighting the fact that if you're not prepared for an assessment, this is essentially what makes it harder, because you can't think on the spot.
Exactly that. So here we go. So the NHS website, because it is an NHS assessment, right?
Yeah.
It says...
I should probably get a pen and be writing some of this shit down.
Yes, do. So we have gone onto the NHS website. As we know, you have to have at least 5 of 9 symptoms. So I'm going into the NHS website because it is an NHS diagnosis. It says symptoms in adults. In adults, the symptoms symptoms of ADHD are more difficult to define. This is largely due to a lack of research into adults with ADHD. Adult symptoms also tend to be far more subtle than childhood symptoms. I don't know about that.
Yeah,
some specialists have suggested the following as a list of symptoms associated with ADHD in adults. Now, interestingly, there are actually 12. So Dawn has raised a list of 1 to 12. We're just documenting this for if anybody else is going through it and wants to do similar. So we've got a list, we've got 1 to 12 there. I'm going to read out the 12 things and Dawn is going to put a ticker across next to the corresponding number, and then she can write some notes about each of those to go into her assessment.
Yeah.
So number 1 says carelessness and a lack of attention to detail.
Check.
Yeah. Continually starting new tasks before finishing old ones.
Check.
Poor organisational skills.
Yeah.
Inability to focus or prioritise.
Yeah.
Continually losing or misplacing things.
Yeah.
Forgetfulness.
Yeah.
Restlessness and edginess.
Yeah.
Difficulty keeping quiet and speaking out of turn.
Yeah.
Blurting out responses and often interrupting others.
Yeah.
Mood swings, irritability and quick temper.
Mm-hmm.
Inability to deal with stress.
Yep.
Extreme impatience.
Mm-hmm.
And taking risks in activities with little or no regard for personal safety or the safety of others. For example, driving dangerously. And the most ADHD thing I've done today is count 13 points as 12.
I know, because I got to 12 and ticked it, and then you read another one out, and I'm like, that's 13, Laura.
Yeah, can't count. So that's all that. So they're not like the actual symptoms as such. They are all points that you need to make.
Yeah.
So
I need to give examples
of. So I will screenshot this and I'm going to WhatsApp it to you right now. So you've got your list. You don't even need to look at your list.
No, because it's all there.
It's 100%. So you've got every single point on that list. You need to tell them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And give an example. Now, on top of that, Dawn has also got, which is ridiculous really, because my assessment, which I was in a very privileged position to get as a private assessment through my husband's work, was on the phone. So I didn't have to prove shit.
Yeah.
So that's, again, why there is such disparity in how the systems work, and there shouldn't be. But luckily, Dawn does have her school reports, because I sure as hell don't.
And my mum kept hold of all these.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I don't want to throw away, you know?
So do you want to give us a little extract just for
Yeah,
shits and
so
gigs?
let's just start with primary 1. So this is me, what year was this in? 1989.
Oh, that's a good year.
So the very first thing that is written in the school report just says, Dawn prefers to chat rather than listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go down to the bottom of the report and just the overall summary, she's coping well with her academic work, but she tends to be bossy and needs checking.
No.
I was like, really? Primary 2, I feel Dawn Marie would do better if she could apply herself more.
Could try harder.
Primary 3, Dawn can produce some good work, but her tendency to chatter instead of getting on with what she should be doing leads to untidiness or unfinished work.
There you go.
Primary 4.
So hang on, we've got that there. Not finishing tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, restlessness is there.
And then primary 4, I need to concentrate more on the task in hand. I listens to stories, but when it comes to anything written, I lack concentration. Her attention is too easily diverted.
Yes.
It's all there. Primary 7. It's, the first thing you see, primary 7. Dawn must learn to listen attentively all the time.
There you go.
I'm like, what kind of teacher is saying that in the first place? She still tends to be very easily distracted.
Yeah.
It's just it's all there. I mean, there's lots more.
That's fantastic. You have that all there.
That's primary 1 to 7. So that's just primary school. And then, I mean, if we were going to go into secondary school, I think my S4 report is comedy. S4, which is just at the end of when I left school, and there's one message coming through from these reports, and it's coming across very strongly. Dawn is clearly not putting anything like the effort she should into her subjects. She's in real danger of not doing herself justice in May. from my own observations, Dawn is far too prone to chatting and being distracted by anything but work. I'm particularly unhappy at the references in these reports to not completing her homework and her own wish to give up on all aspects of maths that she finds challenging. I was in the top group at maths and I was doing really, like, I could do well, but I couldn't concentrate.
Yeah.
And so that concentration caused me frustration. So I was just like, I'm just not
giving up.
I'm not doing the credit work. And I refused to do it. I know Dawn is keen to get into college to follow hairdressing course. She must realise that she will have to study once she is there, and she will be expected to take responsibility for her own learning much more than at present. She's going to find this very difficult with the present attitude and lack of self-discipline. There's still time for Dawn to turn things around if she wants. All her teachers agree that she certainly has the ability. It's up to her. And it's so sad reading that back, actually, because it's just like...
Well, if you had the education and the understanding, the training and the knowledge, of which there really barely is now, so there definitely wasn't then, it's all staring you in the face. So, to be fair, they really didn't know.
It's making me really emotional.
Yeah, it is emotional.
I'm just thinking back to that girl back then.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I feel so sorry for her. I feel so bad for that girl that just didn't know that, like... But she was struggling, and why she was struggling, and everything was against her because like, it was her fault. The teachers were giving her the shit for doing all the for not doing the stuff that she could, and it's like, fuck, I didn't think I was going to get this emotional, but
it is really emotional.
Yeah, it's just like, poor her. Yeah, poor Dawn. Like she was, doing the best in the way she could, and it was just really shit that's how people were treating her, and that's
the thing, Dawn. That is what we're doing here. We are making noise for all the little Dawns, so that people understand and people know. I would love you to tell the story that you told me yesterday about when you went to Thingy's house. The woman told you.
Yeah, so I was speaking to family friends yesterday, and this girl's a nurse, and she works in training student nurses, and one of the students that she has is really quite disruptive. She's chatty, she disrupts people, and the nurse, the teacher, was like struggling with her, getting annoyed with her, getting frustrated with her.
Distracting everybody else.
She's distracting everyone else. She's distracting her from being able to do her job and being able to teach. And other teachers and other nurses were getting frustrated with her as well. And she's actually been listening to our podcast, and she started recognising some traits within this student herself. And she kind of took her aside and had a bit of a chat with her. And she's like, have you looked into ADHD? Have you ever considered this as something that you might have? Because I recognise some traits within you. And the girl had been like, oh, not really. And turns out both her sons have ADHD. And so she's like, oh, I'd never really thought about it for myself. And she said to her, well, she's like, I know this podcast and I've been listening to it, and why don't you go away and have a listen and see what you think? And a couple of days, weeks, whatever, undisclosed amount of time, I don't know. Later, she sent the nurse, the teacher, a really nice message just thanking her, because she hadn't really thought about ADHD within herself, but it was through listening to our podcast and that recommendation that she's seen that in herself. And as a student nurse, she's now been to an educational psychologist. She's got the diagnosis. She's also been able to get a diagnosis, medical diagnosis, because her children both have it, and she's now getting the help and support she needs. She's less disruptive in the classroom, and it's through our podcast.
Because that's the point, isn't it? So I think we were both really overwhelmed by that story, but I think why it felt relevant there is because the frustration that you feel, that we both feel about what was missed. Obviously, it's fantastic that we can resonate with people and make them feel validated and make them not feel alone in their experiences. But what is really miraculous is that people in positions like teachers, like people in workplaces, anywhere, that don't know about ADHD, listening to our podcast, finding out what it's about, and then being able to recognize those symptoms and help people themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's for people like us, but it's also for all the little dawns, in the hope that teachers are listening, because the problem, and GPs are listening, and we know we want people to listen to it so that they can understand how differently it can look from what they know and what they've been taught. I mean, especially with GPs, when we know the lack of funding and lack of training. Again, this isn't necessarily anybody's fault, apart from like the Tory government, I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like in terms of people not knowing about it, people need to know about this stuff so we can save the little Dawns and the little Lauras from getting to nearly bloody 40 years of age, and when it was all written down in black and white in 1989. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Wild, so that helps us, because we both feel so angry and so sad and hurt, and we're working through trying to get over all this horse that we've been dragging around with us of being failures, of being inept and being different and being weird and annoying and all the other things. So yeah, it helps us to help others with it, and in the hope that we can make a change, and we know that we are.
And that's it. And
so it wasn't for nothing, Dawn.
No, and just like that story being told to me last night, I was just, it was just so nice to know that it's not just people with ADHD that are taking in this information, because awareness isn't just about educating the people that think they might have ADHD. It's about educating people that don't have ADHD, but maybe can see it around them. And so the fact that somebody that doesn't have ADHD was able to recognise the traits in someone else and be compassionate towards them, not only just that, they shared that with their colleagues, said, let's not be as harsh on her, because I think there's something else going on here.
She's not showing off. She's not being annoying.
She's not the annoying little chatty shit that's disrupting everyone on purpose. It's because she's got something
brain
else
disorder
going on.
Yeah.
And so for teachers and things to recognise that, if my teachers had been trained and had that information available to them,
it was staring them in the face. But you don't know until you know, right?
Exactly,
and that's it.
Exactly.
And that's it. So anyway, is there anything else you want to add, or shall we leave you to crack on?
That's like emotional. That's enough emotion for one day. I've got all this to look forward to tomorrow as well. But yeah, I guess preparation does make a difference, because as soon as we started to do some of this prep here, I realised that, oh shit, I can't think right on the spot. Like it's
so that's why you need to have those bullet points written down.
Having these reports is massively helpful, but I understand that some people won't have that.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then get as much information on paper as you can, so that when you walk into that office to do your assessment, you can just be like, pow, 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 here it is.
Yeah. Sound advice, and we will come back to you in the next stage.
Dawn's assessment day.
Yes.
ADHD as females, the podcast.
Well, that was an absolute waste of time, wasn't it? And unfortunately, we're not just talking about all the prep work and the lists that we made and all of the sourcing materials that Dawn has done and soul searching to convey her life story for this ADHD assessment. We're talking about the assessment itself. As many of you will have seen on our social media, Dawn had an absolute ordeal in which she didn't even get to speak about ADHD at all.
Yeah.
So, Dawn.
Well, let's start from the beginning,
From the top.
So I went in to my appointment, which, by the way, I made it with 5 minutes to spare. And I was very proud of myself, because I'd lost the keys before I left the house. And I had to look out my spare car key and spare house key, which in typical ADHD fashion, of course. So managed to get there, 5 minutes to spare, got in, sat down and waited to be seen. 15 minutes after my appointment time was due to start, eventually somebody calls my name, which was a psychiatrist, and he was with a student, and I'm fully open to students coming in to train.
We need more trained up.
Yeah, so, exactly. Fully open to that. So that was fine. He had on a pair of jeans and an outdoor jacket, like a waterproof jacket.
In case it rained in the consultancy room.
Yeah, so that I found that weird for a start. And then when he came
and grabbed me. He said, there was a bit of confusion whether you were in person or if it was a phone consultation. I've got it written down as both here, rather than it stating one or the other. Now, I specifically was emailed and asked if I wanted in-person or telephone. And in writing, I replied telling them I wanted an in-person assessment.
Yeah.
So that was annoying for a start. So they didn't have a room for me. And we wandered up and down a corridor until he found a room. And we went in there. We sat down and he kept his jacket on. I took my jacket off and put it on the back of the chair. And I just found it really weird. Like, that's one of the weirdest things that sat with me.
Do you think because it's like, well, this will be over quickly and I've got to nip out afterwards? Do you think that's the connotation?
It just seemed like you're in here, you're a way to make me divulge a bunch of information about my life, like my personal like life story. And you haven't even got the decency to take your jacket off and make me feel a little bit comfortable. Yeah. I just thought that was really shit.
Well, it's impersonal. It's like I've got places to be.
So that annoyed me. And then we sat down. We kind of started from my childhood and spoke about lots of things. There was nothing really connected to ADHD. It was more just about like my life in general. Like there was no questions that were specific. I can't even say that word, specific to ADHD.
I think that's so interesting because obviously that's what you've gone in there to be assessed for.
Yeah.
So the takeaway from that is potentially the NHS is trying to, I think you put it a lot nicer the last time we spoke. You were like, it's that they're screening for other things at the same time. Whereas my mind went to, they're trying to catch you out. They want it to be anything but ADHD. Yeah. So if they can tick it for anxiety, depression, trauma or whatever, then it can be that. But obviously I'm just incredibly sceptical and jaded. But
yeah, no, I get it. They're looking at my whole psyche. They want to get a proper overview of everything.
Yeah.
So that they can make sure that they're ruling out other things, essentially. Yeah. And I get that. So there was lots of like, family history and stuff that we went into as well. And at the very start, actually, I will say at the very start, he did ask me, why I was here for ADHD diagnosis and what my problems were.
Okay.
And he did ask me at the very beginning, so I will say that. But so the interview in itself was around just shy of 2 hours. And then at the end is when he proceeded to tell me that this is part 1 and I will get a call back in about 4 months to come in for part 2.
And how did you feel?
I was fucking devastated.
Yeah.
Like I just broke down immediately. One, because I'd went in with the expectation that I'd waited long enough, and this was it. I was going to get answers.
So at no point were you told this is part 1 of your 2-part or however many part assessments.
Exactly.
You were asked to come in for an assessment on this date.
Yeah.
And remind us, you said something before about you'd been told 4 to 6 weeks and you waited.
Yeah, so I'd been told 4 to 6 weeks back in January, February time, and that was 9 months ago. So
you've waited 9 months for an appointment that you thought was your own assessment.
Yeah.
And it's only part 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've waited 1.5 years, but 9 months from when
they said
it would be, yeah. So, so obviously there was a bit of rage and anger and sadness and all sorts of frustration and feelings and shock, at that point. So it's a bit blurry, but basically I asked him why this was the process, and he told me that it's just a very thorough process that they go through, and that's just the procedure with the NHS in Scotland, and that it takes around 8 hours to diagnose someone with ADHD. And that's their process. So I'm thinking in my head, well, if that's 2 hours that we've just had, and you're telling me there's another appointment to come back in January, I'm guessing that appointment is not going to be 6 hours.
No.
So is it multiple appointments I have to come back for? I don't know
with
this.
However many months waiting in between.
Like I don't know this. And and I asked him why it has to be like this when people can get a diagnosis privately in a couple of hours.
In an hour on the telephone.
In an hour. And
he said it's just the process. It's a more thorough assessment. And I was like, so are you invalidating everybody that's been diagnosed privately? Because that's what it sounds like to me. You're invalidating those diagnoses.
If it's impossible to diagnose somebody in less than 8 hours, so 1 hour appointment and 2 hour appointments, then they're invalid.
And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that this is the process here and it's more thorough. And so I was like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I did have a bit of a diva strop at this point where I was like, well, I actually have an ADHD podcast that has over 100,000 downloads in however many countries. And I'm speaking to people. We have hundreds of people messaging us telling us that this isn't the case, that the process doesn't need to be like this. So I just don't understand.
Do you not know who I am?
I'm such
And on top of that, basically, in a nutshell, you fucked with the wrong person, mate.
I proper diva strop, like through tears and like shouting and all sorts. And then there wasn't really much else said about it. He was just like, yeah, so I was like, I kind of feel like you're backing me into a corner here and I've got no other option than to go privately because I can't wait another 4 months. Like, I've waited this long and I had expectations of knowing now. And
you've lived in limbo for a year and a half.
And I'm struggling. Like, I'm struggling. I'm worried. Yeah. I'm worried that I fuck up uni. I'm worried that, like, you know, I fuck up other things that's going on in my life. I'm worried that I fuck up this. You know, like, I'm properly freaking out. And
I think it's really important to know because I had a message the other day saying, you know, you should get some kind of normal people on the podcast and people that aren't doing well, some people that are struggling. And I was a bit like, well, that's us. That's what we're doing. And it kind of occurred to me that obviously, because we're constantly saying, we've got this many downloads and we've done this and we've done that, like, we don't look like normal people anymore. But it's bollocks.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we are really, really struggling. I'm medicated and diagnosed and don't have as much on my plate as Dawn does. And Dawn is neither. And is really, really, really struggling.
Yeah.
Like, we are struggling, and that's what we're trying to document here. So it's a case of, you know, if Dawn doesn't get treatment soon, there's a very real fear that she's going to fail or walk away from her course.
Yeah.
There's a very real fear that ADHD-AF can't go on.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a full-time job that we're doing here, because content creation is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like, the admin side of it is a full-time job. The planning, the researching, the getting people, we're doing like multiple full-time jobs, both of us. And
editing, social media,
and we don't,
you know.
And we have other jobs. So really, it's really crucial that you do get help now.
Yeah.
So that you can keep the plate spinning, because otherwise at least one of them's going to break.
Exactly. And so I kind of, amongst my tears, just told him I feel like I'm just being backed into a corner. I feel like the system let me down when I was younger. He had all my school reports there in front of him as well, which he was reading. And like, I got so sad. Like, we spoke about this earlier in this episode about those school reports and feeling so sad for that little girl. And I just feel like she was let down. And after
a lifetime of already being let down.
But this is what I mean. That little girl was let down, and I can almost forgive that, because back then there was lack of knowledge, there was lack of awareness. I mean, let's not go into the patriarchal things, because I can't really forgive that. But I can't forgive this now, because there is knowledge, there is awareness, but I'm still being let down by the system. And I don't want to like go and like ridicule the NHS or anything like that, but why can't they simplify these procedures?
Because that's the fucking point, right? Is that if we're in this position where we've said this a million times, we understand that the NHS is underfunded, stretched to their absolute limit. We get that. We're not pointing our finger at the NHS. We're pointing our finger at the fucking government.
Yeah.
That's where we're pointing our finger.
Absolutely.
But the fact remains is that if they did adhere to this system in which you can, because it's 5 out of 9 criteria being met in however many areas of your life, which I can't remember off the top of my head, if they adhered to that system, then you've freed up 7 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Per person.
Per person. So that in itself takes away the weight, the stretch, the money. So it works well on both sides to just go, okay, we'll just diagnose this instead of trying to weed out everything else and going through 8 hours of procedure that doesn't need to happen because private diagnosis is a diagnosis.
Yeah.
In 1 hour on the telephone. And no, I did not have my fucking school reports. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's just, it's just that thing where it's almost like they're not taking you in to diagnose you for ADHD. They're taking you in to look at every single aspect of every single mental condition that exists in the planet, to try and figure out, well, have they got this, that, and the other? And then if they don't, then we'll be like, okay, they've got ADHD.
But it also feels like a test. Like, it's like, if you've passed stage 1, you can proceed to stage 2. And that's why there's a 4-month wait. It's because until you've had the stage 1, they're not going to book you in stage 2. But as you've rightly said before, there should be more of a personal level to this, because at the end of the day, you already have a diagnosis from an educational psychologist.
Yeah.
Right?
But
so,
that's not a diagnosis.
I know
though.
it's not a diagnosis, but the fact remains
Because
you're not just some random person who's just said, oh, I think I've got ADHD, and saying a couple of things because they've seen it on TikTok. You're a person who has explained this, who's been on a waiting list for a very, very long time. Like, it's all literally there.
Yeah.
Literally there in your school reports, in your uni support paperwork. Like, it's done.
But this is what I'm saying, is that when I was in there, I spoke to the psychiatrist about my educational psychologist report. And obviously that's not a medical diagnosis. And I said, but why can't you work off a similar system? Within 2 hours, seeing an educational psychologist, I was told, yeah, we believe you have ADHD based on that. And he said they use an American system, and this is American point system that they use. Mm-hmm. And from what I've heard, this is a system, obviously, that's used throughout America to diagnose people with ADHD. Someone also messaged to say that they think this is the same system that's used in Australia and other countries around the world. So I just don't understand that if this system works and diagnoses people with ADHD, why can't they use it in the UK? Because it's a simplified, quicker way to diagnose people.
Exactly. And helping people on both sides.
Yeah.
As they are so overstretched and underfunded, help yourselves.
Yeah. So I ended up kind of, at the end of the interview, we kind of came out, and he was just like, so we'll be in contact in 4 months. If you want to go private, you can get in touch and get a copy of these notes that might help whoever diagnoses you privately. And then I just kind of walked away from him. Like, I was obviously in floods of tears, and I just kind of walked away. And then I fucking got lost inside the psychiatric hospital. Because I'm a fucking idiot. I did. I was bawling my eyes out. I had a mask on, like
You're lucky they didn't bloody section you.
I know that I had a mask on that was like soaking wet from the tears, and I'm walking through this psychiatric hospital trying to figure out how to get out, and I couldn't find the way out. So that was not adding to my happiness.
It was horrendous, because I asked Dawn to call me straight away, and I'm there. Subplot, obviously we know it was the day that we hit 100k podcast downloads.
Yeah.
So we were actually going to go and get a tattoo that day.
We were.
Tattoo, because it was all the most magical day that has ever been. And there's me trying to sort out this tattoo appointment, and Dawn rings, and I'm like, hi! And the first thing you said was, that was a fucking waste of time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, like my heart just dropped, absolutely dropped.
Yeah, so it was just a bit of a shit show, really. And I just felt really defeated and deflated, and just...
The thing about it is, if they'd have told you that this was only part 1...
Yeah.
And that however many stages there are ahead, which is another piece of information you still don't know, if you were to proceed in this system, then actually either you would have begged, borrowed and stolen to get yourself a private diagnosis long before now.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have suffered like this for so long. Or at least you could like compartmentalize it
Yeah.
and be like, right, this is me until blah. And then when that happens, then this happens. And then you know. But it is just putting your life on hold, living in limbo. And seemingly, unless people chase and chase and chase, you could just be in limbo forever, as I was for nearly 3 years.
Well, this is exactly it. And this is my biggest gripe at the whole thing. Like, forget everything else. Forget the appointment. Forget the unprofessionalism.
Forget the fucking cagoule we had on.
Yeah, forget all of that. And let's just look at it from the point of communication.
Yeah.
If it had been communicated to me that this was just the first part and there was going to be multiple parts. Now, don't get me wrong. I knew that it wasn't going to be as simple as walking in there and coming
Walking out with pills.
Walking out with pills.
Yeah.
I know that there's tests that they need to do, ECGs and stuff, before titration starts, etc. But
yeah, you never thought that.
I didn't think that this was part one of assessment and there was going to be part two and however many parts to it.
With all the preparation for all the stuff to talk to about ADHD to not even talk about ADHD.
I'm like, the people that you're dealing with here are people that have time blindness, task paralysis, struggle on a daily basis, and you're just leaving them in limbo with this really, really poor communication.
Yeah.
And it's just not acceptable.
There's no support, there's no compassion. Like you say, like, even if that guy had been like, I'm really sorry, I don't know why you weren't informed of this. Somebody should have let you know. Like a personal level would have been so helpful. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. He was pleasant enough. He wasn't an arsehole. But he wasn't very helpful in the whole thing, especially when I started crying. He just didn't know what to do. And then other things were like when he was taking notes, he was scribbling on this piece of A4 paper. There was no structure to what he was asking. He would forget questions and like... I would bring something up and he's like, oh, I haven't asked you about sleep. I should ask you about how you sleep.
Oh, shit, you mate.
And then he's like, oh, and I've forgotten to ask you about that. And when he was writing on this piece of paper, he'd run out of space and then write in bits at the side or bits at the top. And I'm looking at this guy thinking...
He's ADHD AF.
Have you got fucking ADHD, mate? Like, seriously? Like, he was more disorganised than me when I'm taking notes. And I'm like, or is this part of the way it goes?
Where are the notes going in that structure? Is he writing them up or do they get filed in the special filing cabinet that's the bin? Like, what's happening here?
There was just a massive air of unprofessionalism about the whole thing. And that didn't sit well with me.
If a person has been waiting a year and a half for an appointment, it would be helpful to just like... make them feel like they were in safe hands.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. And yeah, I feel sorry for the poor student that was sat there the whole time because she must have been like, what the fuck's this? But then she does work in a psychiatric ward. So yeah, I'm sure she's seen it all.
Hopefully she's listening now after that little don't you know who I am?
Yeah. she maybe is. She maybe is, but yeah, what a diva strop. I'm such an asshole.
But the thing is, though, Dawn, is like, you know, the saddest part, well, no, there's so many sad parts to it. One of the saddest things about it is this horrible ordeal that you went through yesterday still counts you as one of the fucking lucky ones.
Yeah. That thought went through me as well, and I'm just like, I'm so lucky. And then the other thing is now I'm looking at potentially going private. I have support from friends and families. There's people around me that, you know, have offered to help me out. And I'm fortunate to have that. Mm-hmm. And this is just where it just fucking pisses me right off in that it shouldn't be a privilege.
No.
Getting diagnosed for a brain disorder shouldn't be a fucking privilege. And the people that can't afford to go private, they've just got to wait it out for however long. And I mean, some people are being told that there's no resources for them to even...
No.
So just
absolutely no.
Just
and you paid your taxes, you've worked all your life. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. The thing is, you know, and I don't want to speak out of turn, and as ever, please remember, we are not experts. We don't have a clue what we are talking about. We are just normal people that have found this out, close to 40, and we're figuring it out and going, what the hell? But as a random guess, again, if I'm talking out of my ass, somebody please pull me up on it, and I apologise. But, like... if you couldn't walk or couldn't see, like, they'd just give you help, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be told to wait a year and a half and then another 4 months and then another however long to be able to get help with any other disability that I know of anyway.
And I know that there's saturation of people coming out of the woodwork that have been miss or undiagnosed. So that does put extra pressure on the system.
Oh, we know that.
But the big thing that I'm talking about here
Change the fucking system.
one, yes, but the big thing that I'm speaking about here is just fucking communicate.
Yeah.
Because if someone had just told me from the start what was going on, what to expect, what the process was, I wouldn't have walked out of there in floods of tears.
No.
I would have walked out that door being like, okay, that's the first bit done. 4 months later, I'll get the second bit done.
Yeah.
That's the big thing
That's
here.
the big thing.
Just fucking
because that
communicate.
wouldn't cost any money or take any time.
No.
Like that's the really
Just
shit bit.
tell people what they're in store for.
Yeah.
Stop torturing people like
it's
this.
a really serious thing that's not being taken very seriously.
Yeah.
And then the wrong things are being taken very seriously.
Yeah.
Because I swear to God, any other condition that you walked in for and had 12 out of 10 of the symptoms for, you would just get treated for. You wouldn't have to jump through hoops and beg to be seen and referred and convince people of.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, there's a couple of things we wanted to say. One is that it's really, really sad because we were so amazed by serendipity once again dealing us a hand and saying, oh my God, Dawn's getting diagnosed in ADHD Awareness Month. And
on the day we hit 100,000 downloads.
We hit 100k downloads, but that we get to do this really special episode because what we've been doing this whole time is documenting the late diagnosis process. I've shared my experience, which is private, and Dawn gets to share her NHS experience. And we were just like, this is incredible. Thank you, fate. And instead...
And the other thing is that I was happy going through this NHS process because it gives people that are listening insight into how it works.
Yeah.
And you've done the private thing.
Yeah.
I've done the NHS thing. And I was like, you know what? It's maybe good that I just stick to the stick to the NHS and don't go private so that I can be the voice for the other people that are doing the same thing. Yeah. But now I'm again backed into a place where I feel like I've got no other choice to go private for my own mental health.
The thing is this is audio, not visual, and you can't see how upset Dawn is right now because we're fucking good at masking. But like, you know, nobody is going to think badly of you for doing that, Dawn. Like, you are suffering, and if people knew how much and could see how much, and anybody that had the means to be able to get the help that they needed with a fucking brain disorder would do that. And that is what you should do, my love. So please don't feel bad about it. All we're trying to say is that the irony in thinking about the timing of fate is that actually all we've done is highlight just how fucking broken the system is. And the fact that you are going to go private, it's now an ADHD late diagnosis podcast from two women who have been failed by the NHS system.
Here. Yeah.
And it's fucking sad.
It's a fucking load of shit.
And as we say, it is not NHS's fault. It's the government's fault. But this really is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And for want of a better word, it's madness because you're overstretching people, overusing resources that are unnecessary. And this system is putting people's lives in danger. ADHDers are 5 times more likely to commit suicide. You're going to tell somebody 6 years, as we know, in Manchester, 4 to 6 weeks, that was 9 months, and then another 4 on top just for fun. Yeah. People who are struggling with their mental health and cannot cope with their lives, in their jobs, in their relationships. You cannot leave people living in limbo that have brain disorders, particularly when symptoms of their brain disorders are so very dangerous.
Yeah.
This is dangerous and it doesn't make sense and it has to change. And that is the sad and sorry state of affairs in ADHD Awareness Month 2022.
Yeah, fun.
Final reflections, my lovely?
Well, obviously that was yesterday. Today has changed a little bit.
Today's a better day.
I called my doctor. I called a doctor. I don't have a specific doctor as such. Well, until today. Mm-hmm. I spoke to a really lovely female doctor who was super empathetic and understanding of what was happening, actually told me to put a complaint in about my appointment yesterday. I told her that, you know, I was now looking to go private, but I was worried that they wouldn't take on shared care.
For my PACE appointment
or otherwise. So she gave me the name of a psychiatrist who she would be willing to accept. He's local. And she said, if you go through them, I will take you on for shared care. So she's put a referral through to this psychiatrist for me. And she's told me that potentially 2 weeks I could have my appointment. And yeah.
And that's the thing, because when I had my appointment, that was that done. And then it had to be the negotiation between the two. And then they were unsure about the shared care and they didn't really want to do it. That was about a month. But as the referral is going directly to this person
from my doctor,
from back and forth, jobs are good un.
Yeah.
You'll be on treatment by the end of this month, Dawn. I can feel it. In ADHD Awareness Month.
So the only thing is now is, like, I don't know how much this is going to cost me.
Money shmoney, honey.
It's a local practice. So yeah, I don't know what the cost is, but at this moment in time,
whatever it is, it's worth its weight in gold. Because the point is that as we keep being told, we are doing crucial work in this realm, and you need to have yours treated to be able to carry on. That is the answer.
And I mean, what price do you put on your own well-being?
Life on your life.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. And it's just, it's been nice. She was super lovely, and I have her name now, and I probably won't be dealing with any other doctors at the practice.
No.
She's my girl.
Amazing. That is really good, really, really good news. So it's nice that there is some positive news. Things aren't as bleak as they were. And obviously, at some point in the future, we'll obviously continue telling this story and how you get on. But at some point in the future, we will speak to some other people who have gone down the NHS route, so that we can have, we had like Nicole's talking about how she ended up going private and couldn't get the shared care and all of that. But, you know, actually hear some potentially even positive stories about NHS diagnosis. That would be
absolutely.
Nice, wouldn't it? So that's where we're at.
That is where we're at. So
it's been an emotional roller coaster for a couple of days.
To be continued. I've not washed or showered or changed out of my pajamas since I came home yesterday. I've eaten my weight in KFC and pizza as well. So yeah, I just ate my feelings since I've been home. But although my chest still hurts with the anxiety and shit, I am feeling better and more positive. Not the outcome I would have liked, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So
absolutely. And I just feel so happy that there is good news here, and that there's not more of a fight and more weight going on for you, because you really couldn't take any more. And truthfully, you know, it's exciting times, you know. It's been really, really hard, but it's exciting times coming up. And though it's not what you want, it's better than it was. Yeah. You know?
Absolutely.
And we've got some other exciting stuff coming up this month.
We really do.
We really do. I'm like, are we saying? Are we not saying?
I don't know. We can say.
Well, we've got some really exciting things happening. Yes, so we're going to do a live with Louise, Pink Pear Bear.
That's correct,
I can't remember the date, but we'll put it on social media. Yeah, we will. It might even be on social media already by the time this comes out. Yes, I think it might. Oh, it will be. It will be. Yeah. And we've been working hard to get some merch together. We have. I'm so excited about this. Honestly. And like, obviously, the obvious things to do would be t-shirts, jumpers, mugs, etc. But you know what we're like. So we haven't gone the obvious route. We're doing things our way. Yeah. A bit differently. And we're so excited to have worked with some small independent makers to bring you some exciting ADHD AF merch. Yes. So watch this space. Coming out very, very, very soon. I'm busting a gut to sort out the webpage, all because of a bloody star sign. Yeah. and thank you so much to everybody that's donated to our Buy Me a Coffee, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have the money to make
make this happen.
No, not at all.
So if you want to support us and continue supporting us, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/ADHD as females, where you can buy us a coffee or as many coffees as you like.
Do I need some coffees? We've got to pay for that private diagnosis.
And yeah, any donations at the moment may well be going towards my diagnosis. And I feel cheeky for even asking for it, because it's like,
no,
I know,
I'm not having this anymore.
I know.
After hearing how upset you were yesterday, you were like, oh, I feel so bad because there's so many people struggling. Yes, there are. And it sucks. And that's why we're working our asses off to try and make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, people want to help you. You have suffered enough. And yes, you know, that does make us privileged, but it is for the good of the cause, you know?
Yeah, well, we're not going to stop fighting until we get change.
I'm not going to stop fighting while there's breath in my goddamn lungs, you know?
Yeah. No, that is very true. So yeah, please give what you can, if you can.
And if not, then, you know, please share our content anywhere and everywhere. Hit those stars, write some reviews on Apple would be really helpful. It helps with the rankings so that more people can see us and we can get the word out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spotify stars. Subscribe, follow.
Yeah,
whatever
like,
it is.
Share,
I don't
save,
know.
all of it. Recommend to a friend. And share in any Facebook groups, anything like that. It all really helps us get the word out there.
In an ideal world, I would love to get rid of the part-time jobs and be able to focus on uni and ADHD AF.
And
that would be the dream. So that
and that will free up my time to do other bits as well.
Yeah, because Laura is really busting a gut.
It's like, it's 7 p.m. I've just done a 12-hour day.
She is really, really busting a gut to keep things afloat just now, because I'm struggling. And yeah, she's essentially keeping this going for the both of us.
Not at all.
You are, though. You really are. You're busting a gut, and I really appreciate it. And you need to know that.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, and we really appreciate all of you. So thank you so much. You know, it really was so heartwarming to see all of the messages of support for your struggles this week.
That's been really nice.
It's been
really
hard
nice.
because I think the thing is, I don't know, I said we've gone over an hour now, but I need to say this. I think it's important. You know, we've always said, and you can't generalise, because part of our message is that ADHD presents differently in every single person. So we can't say everyone's the same. But a lot of what we see is how empathetic we are and how feeling we are. We're these feeling beings with our RSD and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I really felt, oh my God, I feel I'm going to cry. I really felt yesterday that it was like all of these things, all of these bad things that happen, it affects all of us.
Yeah.
And it was like when I put out so much stuff, you know, and words of listen to this and that, or we've done well, or blah, 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 you know, trying to highlight the cause in positive ways or in eye-catching ways. And when I put out your video yesterday, it broke my heart. And I watched the watchers going up and no one was engaging with it. And I sat there and I just felt so bad, because I was just like, this affects all of us. Like, this is, you know, and beyond that, like, ADHD AF can't be all right until you're all right. Like, we can't be all right until you're all right. And it does really affect all of us. So it's just really, really sad to have to highlight how bad things are this ADHD Awareness Month. But at least you can now see it as you have, as fuel for the fight. You know, fire in your belly.
There is fire in my belly. Nobody should have
to suffer like this. And if there's anything we can do, not just in validating the community, which is obviously so important to us, but in highlighting this and just opening people's eyes to how absolutely atrocious this is for everybody, including the people in the NHS broken system.
The one thing that got me thinking, and it's going back to those school reports and reading about how that little girl had to suffer.
Yeah.
And someone, I think, said someone had put a really lovely message on or review or something on Buy Me a Coffee, saying that we are future ADHD daughters, or what is it? Yeah, go read it.
I woke up to it and just bawled my goddamn eyes out. So it says, your experiences and words are so inspiring. I take great comfort in knowing that the next generation of ADHD AF daughters, mine included, and subsequent generations will continue to benefit from your important work. Thank you for giving our community a voice. We have been quiet for too long. Why am I crying again? So
nice.
Can you turn it off so I don't cry?
But
that's exactly it. Like the little girl, the little Dawn and the little Laura's that suffered their whole fucking lives. I don't want that for anyone else. If we can make change to the way things are so that people don't have to suffer the way we have, then I'm not going to stop.
No, amen to that. So please take care of yourselves, and if you are suffering, you know, as so many of you are in limbo or in difficult situations where you're not being communicated to or respected, like, we really do need to join forces, you know, write those complaints, go full Karen on anybody that will have it, you know, and don't forget to wear a piece of leopard print on Friday the 21st,
yes,
the penultimate Friday of this month, and join our leopard print army. Send us a picture of you wearing at least one leopard print item or a video. Tag us on your socials, and join our army to stand in solidarity to say that we need change.
Because without this community, we are nothing.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't think I would have been able to get through this without you guys.
No.
So thank you.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF, ADHD as females, the podcast.